Let me be clear, my riding style is utilitarian. I don't think of a motorcycle as a hobby. It's more like a different way to travel. It makes even a boring commute a little more interesting than in a car. I've ridden this bike in stop-and-go traffic in the city and at high speeds on the interstate. I've ridden on twisty back roads for fun, as well as used it to run errands. I've not taken it off-road much, but from the videos I've seen, it's more than capable enough to do most things that the average person would want to do. But in the hands of a capable off-road rider, this bike could do a lot of things the bigger adventure bikes could do. Now, that being said, I believe that this bike, like any other bike, has physical limitations that will determine to what extent even a highly trained rider can push them. But I don't accept the reviews of YouTubers who get on this bike at the dealership, ride down a dirt road, and say, it only has light off-road capability. I think you could go off-road in a Goldwing if you know what you're doing. Don't believe me? Check this out. It's been almost a year and 2,500 miles since I got my 2020 V85TT Travel. I thought it might be good to take a few minutes and talk about my impressions of the bike. There are a ton of videos that have the specs for each model, so I won't go through all that. But there are a couple of things worth noting about the 2020. While there were a few upgrades on the 2021 model, most of them, for me, not really worth buying a new bike. The shift indicator doesn't show the gear you're in if the clutch is pulled in. Now, I understand they fixed that in 2021 and forward, but it's really not that big of a deal. The only time it's really remotely an issue for me is at a stoplight when you want to be sure you're in first gear. And the workaround, like any bike, is just tap the gear shift lever a couple times and be sure you're in first gear. Other than that, it's really a non-issue. Generally for off-road, you may want a tubeless tire for ease of repair. Now, I suppose I could change the rims, and I think the 2021 and beyond have tubeless tires. Most of my off-roading will be dirt roads and not too far off the beaten track, but if I were to spend a lot of time riding in places where there was no cell phone service and motorcycle dealerships weren't nearby, then this would be more of an issue. But so far for me, it's really not. It also has no sport mode. The 2021 and beyond has a sport mode. The 2020 has 3 modes: the off-road mode, the street mode, and the rain mode. And of all the modes I've used, the most is probably the street and the rain. The rain mode just amps up the traction control, keeps the ABS, and moderates the throttle to keep you from making any quick inputs. And the street mode is basically ABS, traction control, and normal throttle. The off-road removes the ABS from the back tire, and the throttle becomes gentler and engine braking increases. Riding in the rain, which I've done a lot on this bike, feels very stable. The traction control is a nice backup if you do something that might get you into trouble. The heated grips work well in taking off the chill on cold mornings or when it's 50 or 60 degrees Fahrenheit, or even when it's in the 30s and you're wearing really thick, bulky gloves. Cruise control is a cramp saver on long rides. It's easy to engage and disengage. Just be ready to twist the throttle when you disengage it, either with the brakes or the button. The big old engine head sticking out of each side, this is after all an air-cooled bike, will give you a tiny bit of heat when riding in the cold, but surprisingly it's not terrible in the hot. We get over 100 degrees Fahrenheit where I ride, so this is from experience. If you do get too warm, just point your knees out and get a little air. The relatively low seat height for the class, it's about 31 inches, makes this a great for short riders. I'm 5'11", 34-inch inseam, and it fits me well. The ergonomics of this bike are well thought out, so you don't wear you out on long rides. The bike has some quirks, and truth be told, I bought it for that reason. I don't really want another bike like every other bike on the road. I love its retro styling, its transverse V-twin that shakes like a Cessna 172 starting up. Maybe that's from the aviation roots. Everything about this bike I really enjoy. A couple of quirks that are notable, and these are just minor, is number one, the mode button. It doesn't change the riding mode, it only changes the TFT display. To change the riding mode, you push the electric start button once the engine is running. So that's kind of strange. And the engine cutoff switch, while generally red on most bikes, on this one they decided to paint it black. But none of these are major, and it just makes the bike unique. I've had no mechanical issues so far. This bike starts and runs as advertised each and every time. Although it has a dry clutch, I can still do slow speed maneuver exercises on it, but I admit I do practice them sparingly so as not to put undue wear on the clutch. I've only run non-ethanol gas since I got this bike last year, and the first oil change was done at the dealer. I'm going to be doing future oil changes myself as needed. The bike has a shaft drive, so that's great for not having to do chain maintenance. And to me, the horsepower loss for the shaft drive versus chain is worth it. I ride this bike as a second vehicle. With gas prices through the roof, it's nice to get 40 plus miles to the gallon on a 6-gallon tank. I ride it to coaching gigs, some of which are 80 miles each way from my house. The other vehicle, a 2014 FJ Cruiser, gets about 13 miles to the gallon and would bankrupt me with today's prices. I love the way it looks. It's retro Italian design. It's different from most modern bikes. It's affordable to buy and to operate, and I'm very happy with my decision to buy it. Is it right for you? Well, only you can answer that. If you can, ride one and see what you think. But beware. Riding a Guzzi can be addictive.